Are we headed into a recession? Many economists are putting it out there that we inevitably are headed in that direction. But what do you think? Comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback and where you think we're headed, because one of the most commonly asked questions that we're getting these days is, if we're headed into a recession, what is that going to do to the housing market? My name is Seanu Uyehara. I'm a branch manager with Loan Depot, helping you get your mortgage right. And it wasn't too long ago, I was just like you, looking to buy my first primary residence or a rental property and trying to navigate the mortgage industry. There's a lot of myths and confusion out there, and that's why I created my channel, to help you get your mortgage right. I put out content every single week to help you learn the ins and outs and the knowledge that I've had over the last 17 years to make sure that you make the most out of your mortgage. And if you have questions or need a second opinion, you can always send me an email or comment below, and make sure to subscribe to my channel because I really appreciate all the love that you guys show us. Now, this whole recession talk reminds me of a conversation I literally had with a client the other day. His name was Greg, and he's been on the fence about buying. And Greg actually said, you know what, Sean, I'm going to wait. I think we're going to collapse, and I just don't think now is the right time to buy because of the fact that we're going into a recession. So I said, Greg, I humbly disagree with you. I don't think that values are going to change. Values are based on geography and where you actually live. Not every single market across the country is going to react the same way. However, Greg thinks that his hypothesis is accurate. So I'm just going to have to wait and see how things play out. But I wanted to share with you why I don't think a recession is going to impact the real estate market as much as you might think it is. So I actually looked up an article online. Bankrate.com had published an article several months ago talking about how recessions have fared over the last 40 or so years. Let's take a look at some of these past recessions and see how they fared as far as interest rates go, because that's also a big topic, and housing prices. So let's start back in the 1980s. You can see that values actually rose 5% during the 80s. And if you remember, interest rates back during that time frame was also around 10%. There's even times where, if we take a look here back in 1981, the annual average interest rate that year was 16%, and buyers were paying 2 discount points to get that interest rate. 2 points just to get a 16% rate. That's insane. 1982 to 1983, home prices rose 9% during that time frame. And let's take a look. The average interest rate in 1982, according to Freddie Mac's website, was 16%. And if we were to take a look at 1983, the average interest rate was 13%, and home prices still went up. 1991 to 1992, values climbed 5%. Now let's take a look at where interest rates were during that time. In 1991, the average interest rate was 9.25%. In 1992, the average interest rate was 8.3%. And again, in both of these scenarios, buyers were paying discount points to even get that interest rate, which means the par rate was probably even higher. 2001, values increased another 2.7%. Now let's take a look at where interest rates were during that year. Hey, they've come down. They were about 6.9% during that year. Now, the one anomaly that we have is 2008 and 2009. 2008 and 2009, the reason why the recession took place was because of the housing market. During 2008 and 9, the market actually fell 11%. Interest rates in 2008 were 6%. Interest rates in 2009 were 5%. And guess where rates are today? They're around 5%, which is funny because so many of you that I've talked to, or many of you first-time home buyers out there, are thinking 5% is a total ripoff. But look, it used to be 5% back in the day. And that's why I always tell people rates are relative. And even though you might think 5% is high today, it's really a decent rate if you've looked at it over the last 50 years. In fact, the 2s and 3% that we've seen over the last several years, we honestly just got spoiled with that. We've never seen that, and who knows if we'll ever see that ever again. Here's a graph that can literally show us from 1975 up until 2020 all the recessions that took place, and you can see that values have either steadily increased or they were still going up. Like we had mentioned, there was only the one anomaly back in 2008 where values actually decreased, and that was the one and only time that it was caused by the subprime market. Now, if you remember back in those days, if you had a heartbeat and a social security number, you could literally get a loan. Guys were making 30, 40, 50 grand a year buying 5 and 6 investment properties because you could buy an investment home with no money down. Imagine that. If anybody could buy a house today with no money down, I guarantee you more people would be buying, simply because of the availability of credit. However, buying a house today, you have to qualify for the mortgage. The lenders have to make sure that you can truly afford the payment. And if you can't, you're not qualifying for the loan. The requirements to buy a house today are way more stringent than what they used to be back in the day. And why? Because of the housing collapse and because of what the subprime market did to the economy, to businesses, and to a lot of homeowners that were out there. And another recession that quickly happened was during COVID. We hit a rough patch, but look at what that did to the entire real estate market. I thought that if we were going to shut down the entire Las Vegas Strip, let alone most of the economy, that would decimate the housing market. But look at what happened. They injected money. They had the stimulus plans. They had forbearance packages, and people were able to maintain their properties. People were able to work from home. People relocated all over the country simply because of the fact that they could work from home and they could now be able to be with their families, and people moved and bought homes. Remember, there's record equity across the board right now. So many people that own homes don't have mortgages on them, which gives them the flexibility to either sell for top dollar because there's not as much inventory on the market, or they can tap into the equity to invest and buy other properties. But these are just some of the reasons why I think even if we head into a recession, things are not going to slow down. Things are still going to stay as busy as they are, especially in the Las Vegas market. There are still tons of people that are relocating here from all over the country because of our cost of living, because of the fact that we don't have any state income tax here in Nevada. So many of you that live in states that have state income tax, you're getting taxed on your income 30, 40, 50%. You're going to look for some sort of tax shelter. And where do you find that? You look for states that have no state income tax like here in Nevada. That's why I think Nevada will still be a strong draw for the next several years, because as inflation continues to do what it's doing, which is going up, it's making things more expensive every single day. So where are you going to get any sort of relief? You're either going to have to find another job, part-time job, to make some extra income, or you have to look for ways to cut your costs. Whether you're going to start cutting coupons or you're going to start maybe getting rid of a vehicle or whatever it is, you have to find ways to either save money or look for tax benefits to help you going forward. Now, another piece of my argument to my client was the fact of the number of homes that are on the market right now. And in order for there to be any sort of massive drop in value, which is what he's expecting, you have to have a massive amount of supply on the market. And unless we have more homes hitting the market, which that's not necessarily happening right now because the builders that are out there can't build them fast enough. And even if the builders could, let's just say we could wave a magic wand and we could let every home builder out there build as many homes as they wanted to today, they would not release the inventory, because that's the mistake that the banks made back in 2008. As they foreclosed on these properties, they would put them back on the market. And that's why there was a surplus of homes. And you can see here on this chart, if we go back to those 2008, 9, 10 days, you can see the number of months of supply that was on the market. You have over 10 months, which is a buyer's market. Because remember, 6 months is sort of an equilibrium point. So anything greater than that would be considered a buyer's market. So again, the banks foreclose on homes, they put them on the market, tons of homes for sale, not a lot of competition. You had prices dropping. However, look at where we are today in 2020. If we look at this, and the number that we see here is 3. And look at the difference from this 2010 mark to this 2020 mark and where the 2 points on the chart are. We are an extreme shortage of homes on the market. And again, if you were a home builder, you wouldn't flood the market as well, because you have the one thing that everybody wants, and that's a home. And you can control how fast you build them. You can control how fast you put them out into the market. And normally when a builder releases a new phase of a subdivision or anything that they're building out, they typically like to increase the value of the homes. So if they could increase it another 15 to 20%, you absolutely bet they're going to do that. Why would they release 200 homes in a subdivision today just so that way you could buy a house? It doesn't serve them any good. They could release 5 today, they could release 5 in 6 months, and let's just say they increase it another 30%. They've got another 30% to their bottom line. And then again, in another 6 months, they'll do the same thing and they'll keep doing it. And guess what? If you as a home buyer get frustrated and you don't want to go look at a resale, you'll put your name on a waiting list and you will wait it out. Now, this is why I don't think values are going to slow down, because the demand is still there. People are wanting to move. People are wanting to buy a home because of the fact of real estate is one of the greatest asset classes that you can buy when you're trying to hedge inflation. And what time are we in right now? We're in a time of high inflation. record high inflation. So if you weren't on the gravy train the last few years and decided to buy a house, you almost have FOMO right now where it's like, I have to do something before it gets worse, which guess what? Drives more demand. So even if things were to potentially slow down because of interest rates, I think people are still going to look to buy because in most parts of the country, rents have been rising significantly. I read an article the other day that in Las Vegas over the last year, rents have gone up over 20%. 20% for the average person. Let's say you're paying $2,000 a month in rent and now your monthly rent went up $400. Most people don't have enough money saved to take on another $400 a month, which is about another $5,000 a year. I can tell you after 17 years of doing loans, there's not a ton of people that have an emergency savings or any type of funds that are sitting in an account that they never touch. That's why there's all these down payment assistance programs that help people buy homes because they know that the average person doesn't have the money saved. So to think that now with inflation going up, with the cost of gas going up, cost of your groceries going up, the cost of your rent going up, buying a house is probably one of the best ideas because now at least I can stabilize my monthly rent or my monthly living expenses, at least for my rent and my mortgage. Now, for those of you that are on the fence about buying, the one question that I would ask you is, one, what is your lease up and how much is your landlord going to increase your rent? And if you haven't thought about those things yet, I think it's something you should really consider thinking about because let's say you're paying $2,000 a month in rent right now, and then your rent's going to go up to $2,400 a month. $2,400 a month is a mortgage payment. You should start to think about, can I qualify for a loan? Because if you, let's say your rent is going to expire in 8 to 9 months, you've got some time to save money. You've got some time to fix your credit. You've got some time to be able to put a plan together. So maybe by the time your lease is expiring, you have a good game plan to be able to buy a house. Even if we were to head into a recession, I do not think that home prices are going to significantly drop. Could things taper off or maybe not as appreciate as much? Absolutely. Because we've been seeing double-digit appreciation over the last almost 10 years. So maybe instead of a 20% appreciation, you're going to see maybe 10, or maybe it goes to 5, which if you look on average over the last number of decades, that's about the average a typical home appreciates every single year. It's about 5 to 7%. So instead of massive record appreciation every year, maybe we just have normal appreciation. So we may look at that as slowing down, but in reality, it's just being the norm again. In my opinion, I don't think the recession is going to slow us down. I think values are going to either stable or level off. Even if interest rates continue to go up, there will still be people that need to buy homes. There are still going to be people that are going to look for the opportunities, whether they're buying investment properties or for the average person that has saved up money and is in a position to purchase. They're going to be buying homes. Everything's going to be okay. And we're going to get through this just like we've done in every other recession that has come and passed. And if you have questions and need a second opinion on your mortgage, don't forget you can send me an email or comment below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.